this thing on? Hello. Welcome to the Upshot. I'm Charlie Eisenhood, editor of Old World Disc Golf. That's Josh Mansfield. And this is your show about the latest in the disc golf world. It is Thursday, November 10th. We've been off for a week, Josh, and I don't know what I'm doing. Like my everything's been thrown off. My schedule's all weird. I'm like trying to catch up on the news. How are you?
It's been weird. I'm good. I can't complain. Denver was good. Very, very busy. Much busier than I expected. But got a lot done. And same thing. Like disc golf was just not anywhere close to the forefront of my mind. You know, I think it would be amiss if we didn't mention the World Series happened while we were away.
That's true. The Houston Astros get a legitimate championship this time. And so congratulations to them. Very talented team. Alex Bregman went to my high school.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah. There's
greatest baseball player ever out of the state of New Mexico. I'm saying that with I've done zero research. But
all right.
Yeah. I was kind of disengaged from baseball playoffs this year. Giants kind of sucked. I stopped watching games in like August.
Fair.
And so I popped in here and there. Playoff baseball is great, but I was like, games are on so late on the East Coast that I was just skipping them a lot.
I was staying at a resort that was kind of like an all-inclusive, you don't need to leave, didn't have a rental car or anything. And so the best restaurant at the resort was a sports bar that had just floor-to-ceiling Jumbotron-sized TVs. Yeah. And so I just went and watched the World Series every night for dinner and ate way more cheeseburgers than I needed to. But I wanted to watch baseball, so that's where I was at.
I was just in the Smoky Mountains on vacation. And
nice. How was it?
Oh, it's great. I've never been down there. It's kind of crazy. I went to Dollywood. If you ever get a chance to go to Dollywood, you got to go.
Okay. All right. I've also not been.
It's a cool experience down there. So touristy. Like, I think it's one of the biggest tourist destinations in the country. Wow. I was reading that it's the number one spot for people to go for Thanksgiving, like to go away somewhere. I was like, wow, that's wild. But it was awesome. It was 75 degrees every day and sunny. So nice. Nice. Needed a break.
Love that.
We're glad to be back with you. We've got a bunch to catch up on. Today's going to be kind of a catch-up show. And then we're going to kind of dive into more off-season stuff next week. We've got a subscriber bonus segment for you today. If you're a subscriber, and we'll be checking in on some of the behind-the-scenes stats on the award voting for the Disc Golf Pro Tour All-Stars and Most Improved Players and such. And then we're also going to be doing a live Rapid React show for the New World Championship, which is the Silver Series, part of the 2023 season wraparound, that will be taking place this weekend down in Florida. And there will be live coverage of all three rounds. So we're going to do a live Rapid React show. And it'll probably, basically going to be the last one until we get back to maybe All-Stars in February. So this is we're about to enter the true winter of disc golf after this weekend. So you can become a subscriber for less than $4 a month at discgolf.ultiworld.com/subscribe. And you get into the Discord and everything else. So, Josh, let's dive in here. We've got much to do. Silver Series. So the day we recorded and released our last show, the Silver Series schedule was updated, and the 2023 season schedule was updated. So they have added the following tournaments to the silver part of the season next year. The Cascade Challenge at Kayak Point near Seattle in Washington State. That's going to be May 26th to 28th. The Zootown Open in Missoula, Montana, June 9th to 11th. The Kansas City Wide Open, July 7th to 9th. And the Mid-America Open returns. That's in Columbia, Missouri, July 28th to 30th. They also tweaked some other events. They moved the Portland Open up a weekend, which makes space for that silver event in Washington State, but also gets it off of the same weekend as U.S. Masters. There are a lot of people upset about that because U.S. Masters is happening just down the road in Eugene. And then they also shifted the Prince Edward Island Silver event, the Discmania Open, from right before the European swing to in the fall swing right after World. So it'll be in September now. So, Josh, 4 events, 3 new to the tour, although the Kansas City Wide Open has been a national tour in the past. And then the Mid-America Open returning. Your thoughts on the 4 events getting added?
I really like that there's one in the Seattle area. I think that's another location that when you're talking about West Coast disc golf, when you think Portland and Seattle both, I think, are natural locations in terms of the accessibility and disc golf fan hub based on population that make a lot of sense. I'm not super familiar with courses in the Seattle area, but I'm assuming this one's going to demonstrate well and play well for a silver event.
I'll tell you this really quickly.
Okay.
I had somebody who plays disc golf in Seattle mentioned to me like 2 years ago that they should have a tour event at Kayak Point where this tournament is going to be. I think it's gonna acquit itself well. We'll see.
Awesome. I think I remember being, I don't know if I went to another area around Kayak Point, but that name just sounds so familiar. So, I mean, I've been to the Seattle area a handful of times for when I was in college for debate tournaments, especially, but then just recreationally as well. I'm really excited to see this event. I think it's a good location and should be good. Zootown Open, I know, is one from Missoula that has been talked about. It's gotten broadcast in the past and had coverage by Central Coast Disc Golf. It is a course that is, I mean, very mountain disc golf on the one course, and then it's on a golf course that I don't know if I've seen the coverage on the golf course, but it's a fun course to play. And so I'm excited to see it get up to Missoula. There are absolutely amenity restrictions. That means that I don't think this one could ever be a Pro Tour event. Parking at Blue Mountain is just a nightmare. And so it would not be an ideal location for a Pro Tour event, let alone with cell service being another problem. I think it's a perfect silver event, though, for representation in mountain disc golf. And I definitely am going to try and make it up there for that event to go watch.
Yeah, I mean, your wish was granted. You get something in your neck of the woods. It's got to be still what, like 4 hours for you driving?
6.
More? 6.
Yeah.
Welcome to the West, baby.
Yeah, it was 2 from where I was in college in Helena, but where I'm at now it's 6. So I'll get to stay the night at my in-laws, like on the way there, and break up the trip. But yeah, I'm excited to have that one. Kansas City Open and Mid-America Open. I mean, good Midwest tournaments. I don't have a lot to add on those. I think not terribly surprised by those. I'm not super familiar with the Kansas City Open, but should be good.
Yeah, it's been a popular A tier for a long time. Former national tour event, good course, should be good. Yeah. Mid-America Open at Harmony Bends. It's a very solid course. I think it's probably more fun to play than it is to watch on TV, but still good. I think there's a reason it keeps being a silver. Just to say that. Okay, let's move on. We also now have more news about the tour card qualification system for 2023 and 2024 and beyond. Now, this is something that we've talked a bunch about on the show. When they first announced that there was going to be a tour card, there weren't really a lot of details about how you would qualify for a tour card if you didn't simply play the tour and finish in the top 75 and 25 in MPO and FPO respectively. It can't be 25, can it?
It is now 80 and 40.
Yeah, it must have been 35.
No, it was 25.
It's now 80 and 40.
Yes, you were correct. It was 25.
It was
jumped
25.
15 spots for FPO.
I mean, it shows you how much FPO has grown. That 25 feels like way too small of a number, but that actually was correct.
Yes.
So there wasn't really another mechanism before. Mm-hmm. But now there is a much more codified system for how this is going to work. So I'm going to break down how it's all going to happen, and then we can talk about the various methods. So basically for next year, you just have to have finished top 80 MPO, top 40 FPO. And then there's exemptions, if you were hurt or if you
Europeans.
Only played a couple tournaments or if you're European. Last year, pretty much all the players who really wanted to get one got one. I would expect a similar result this year. Like if somebody's really adamant that they want to get one and they are, have a high enough rating and played enough events, then they'll probably get one. But for 2024 qualifying, here's how it's going to go down. So first of all, you have the same system, top 80, top 40. That's still in place. However, if you participated in the Tour Championship this year, 2022, you will have a tour card for the next 2 years automatically. So this is going to be a new standard going forward. There will be a 2-year exemption if you make the Tour Championship. So if you make the Tour Championship next year, 2023, you're guaranteed tour card for 24 and 25. This mirrors a PGA Tour policy that we'll talk about in a second. Next, if you finish highly at important tournaments, you can earn a tour card for the next season. For majors, top 10 MPO, top 5 FPO, automatic tour card for the next year. At Elite Series events, top 5, top 3, MPO, FPO respectively, and silvers if you win. So even if you just go to Worlds, let's say, and you finish in the top 10 in MPO, you automatically get a tour card for the next year, even if you play no other events.
This is otherwise known as the Nate Sexton rule.
yeah. He's locked in forever.
right. He's fine.
There still will be exemptions, of course. And then this is probably the biggest piece of news here. There's going to be a qualifying series next year, a group of events that will have its own set of points that are outside of the Pro Tour point standings. And players at the top of that qualifying tour point standings, top 6 MPO, top 3 FPO, will get a tour card for the following year. And if you win one of those events, you get a partial tour card that grants you access to 6 events on the tour for the following season. Now, obviously, if you win one, you probably have a pretty good chance or would certainly consider trying to go to more of them to finish in the top 6 or 3 in order to get a full tour card. But that's how that's going to work. So there's going to be 6 events. They have not been named. You have to imagine they would be regionally distributed across the country, which could make it difficult to go to all of them. But, you know, if you want to become a touring pro, at some point you're going to have to start touring. So that's something to think about. So overall, big changes next year. Essentially, make the Tour Championship, get a 2-year exemption. Top 10 or top 5 at major, top 5 or top 3 at an Elite Series, win a silver, get a tour card, and top 80, top 40 in overall standings, as it's been in the past. And then there's this new qualifying tour option. Josh, this is a pretty significant change. Do you feel like this is satisfying the need for clear mechanisms to get a tour card and get access to the competition?
Yes. But one other note that I wanted to bring up is that applications for being a member of the qualifying series as an A-tier event are open through the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. So a little over 2.5 weeks. If you are an A-tier tournament director and would like your tournament to be on the qualifying series, you can apply for that. I think it's it's the right next step. I have lots of ideas in my head that we've talked about qualifying systems that I would love to see, but would require much more infrastructure and time and work and etc. I think the biggest question I have is about on those qualifying series, if they are distributed across the country. You're right that people have to start touring eventually. That's also a big commitment, though, and I don't know. It's interesting. I'm interested to see where those 6 tournaments fall, because if you've got one in, I don't know, Maine, and then one in Southern California, like that's quite the trip that you've got, and it's especially difficult, not because I'm saying, oh well, these people aren't touring or they need to get an experience of it, but most of these people who are doing these 6 events probably still work jobs that have limited time off ability, and are trying to decide if they're going to leave that job in order to make the next step as a touring disc golfer. So that's a hard commit to ask for somebody that I think is going to be a little bit difficult. It's why I think I'm still in favor of regional series that give qualifications. So you have, whether that be state point series, whether that be if you created like a Pacific Northwest circuit that had 10 events that were included in the top, however they decide. But I really do think that's further down the road. I think this is a good start. I appreciate the specificity. I think there's good consideration to all of the mechanisms and metrics that should be important for players to earn access to a tour card and ensure that we have the representation of the best players as well as new and young talent.
I love, I'll talk about the qualifying tour a bit in a second. I love the other changes. I think the other changes are very clear and sensible. And, the idea that you get a really big bonus incentive of getting a 2-year exemption for making the Tour Championship. Like, that's great. So here's what the PGA Tour does. And I'm sure this is a non-exhaustive list, but just based on some cursory examination of this. If you get a win on tour in the PGA, you get a 2-year exemption for following 2 years. There's certain tournaments that if you win, you get a 3-year exemption. And if you win a major or the Players Championship, you get a 5-year exemption. So I kind of want to see the Pro Tour think about something like that too. Like, if you win a major, rather than just getting the benefit of, a lot of tour points for it, and then, of course, the tour card for the following season, maybe you should get one for multiple seasons. I mean, you think about USDGC, if you finish top 10, you get an automatic invite to the next year. And if you win one, you get an automatic invite forever. Now, I'm not saying that you should automatically get a tour card forever, but I think, there should be like a really significant bonus for winning a major. Like, Gannon Burr should not have to worry about earning his tour card. Not that he's going to have to, and I'm going to get to that. But I think, like, there should be, you're locked in for a long time if you win a major.
So one note, don't major winners get auto qualification to the Tour Championship?
To the play-in.
To the play-in.
You're automatically guaranteed a play-in spot. Now, the thing is, if you win a major, the odds that you're not going to actually qualify straight up for the Tour Championship are slim. I mean, we haven't really seen that. I mean, we saw that with Eagle and Haley King because both of them just didn't play very much.
I
but
guess
obviously they were talented enough that they would have easily qualified had they played all the tournaments.
Right. The point I was making, I was thinking they got auto invited to the playoffs, which if that, or the championship, which if that was the case, they would get the 2-year bonus for winning a major. If all they did was win a major, for example, in Eagle's case, if that would put him in the championship, then he should just get the 2-year exemption.
It's an interesting thought, like whether that should be allowed or not. I think the Pro Tour probably doesn't want to let that happen. Because probably then you think about, you just mentioned the Nate Sexton effect. Like, think about that, right? Let's say Nate Sexton parachutes in and, he just plays the majors. I mean, that's not so far off from what he's been doing. And let's say he wins one. I think that's probably an unlikely circumstance at this stage in his career, but it's not impossible. I mean, he's up there. He's good enough. Like,
finished
on
third
courses,
last year, 2 years ago.
Yeah, like he could still win one. Let's say he wins one, and then he automatically gets to go to the Tour Championship. Well, that's great for him, but it's bad for the Pro Tour to have a top player go to the major, win it, and then be like, well, I don't need to go to any of these Pro Tour events. What do I care?
Right.
Like, let's say Macbeth did that. Not that he would, but let's say he did. The Pro Tour is going to be very upset if Macbeth just doesn't show up to most of the Elite Series tournaments because he won the major and he's already in.
One of Disc Golf Network's biggest assets just walked out the door.
Right. So, but I think, it's a fair point. But like, I think you could still offer tour card in the future.
I think so too.
For winners. Anyway, back to the qualifying tour series. One thing they could do right now is they could just say, we're carving up the country into these clumps of regions based on state lines or whatever. Mm-hmm. And all of the A tiers in those states are part of the regional qualifying tour for that region. the South,
Yep.
the North Central, the South Central, the Mountain West, whatever.
Yep.
And then if you you set up some sort of point standings for those A tiers, and then you say, okay, if you finish top 2 in your region, you get a tour card if you want it.
Great idea.
And like, there's no administration required. Like the PDGA already figured out all the A tier stuff.
Right. That's a great idea.
And then you could do the same thing for European tours, and it's done.
Uh-huh. It's done.
Like
and all you have to do is pull results in the end.
And that solves your problem of having a system. It also allows people to like reasonably have a travel plan that works for them, that makes sense. Now, I'm saying this off the cuff. I haven't sat down and looked at a map of all the A tiers and like the timing and whether there's certain areas that would have too many A tiers compared to others. But I think the PDGA generally does a pretty good job of distributing them across the country and across certain weekends. And it's going to be hard to make a tour out of 6 events, if that makes sense. It's just like
6 events from not full-time touring players.
Yeah, I feel like it's like we're going to see the people in the center of the country have a much better chance of doing well because there's just going to be more events clustered near them, because you don't want to put one in Maine, right? You don't want to put it super far away from everybody.
Yeah.
Interesting situation. It's the right idea, but I'm not sure the implementation is going to work exactly. If you want it to be like a tour, like how many players are going to play more than 2 of these events? I think that could be fairly small.
But I love your suggestion. I think it's super easy to do, and you just group the country based on the number of A tiers, right?
Sure.
So maybe if I don't know, somewhere like Illinois has 6 A tiers, maybe Illinois is just by itself.
Sure. And you could also just look at the list of A tiers and then divide them up. You didn't have to do by state lines. That was just for ease of discussion. But you could just make little mini tours, and you could name them their own thing. And it's like this series of A tiers is going to qualify 2 players to the tour for 2024.
Love it. I love that idea.
So anyway, let's move on. We have some more awards announced by the Pro Tour. We now have the 2nd and 3rd card All-Stars, as well as the Rookies of the Year and Most Improved Players. So your Rookies of the Year, no surprise here, they've pretty clearly been locked into winning this award for multiple months. Emily Beach and Isaac Robinson. And remember, there's specific criteria about how you qualify as a rookie. Isaac Robinson feels like a little bit of a surprise as a qualified rookie, but he met the standard. He hadn't played that many events in the past, and he got so good so fast that it feels surprising that he's a rookie, given how well he played.
Yeah, he just barely stayed underneath the threshold in terms of the number of events that he played when he was in college. We know that he was at a couple Elite Series, and I think we regularly were seeing his name in first the top 50 and then the top 25 and then the top 15 at USDGC before he was ever on tour. And then he starts playing a full tour and just hit the ground running so fast. Just a runaway for Isaac Robinson as Rookie of the Year.
Emily Beach, no surprise there. She was, finishing near the tops of tournaments. We were seeing her on coverage regularly, and clearly fits the bill as a rookie. Most Improved, maybe a little bit more controversial here. Valerie Mondahano and Gannon Burr are your Most Improved players. Now remember, these were decided based on a media vote, combined with a fan vote, combined with their season-long performance. And so that's how you end up with those names. Now, Josh, I think you voted for Valerie, right?
No, I voted for Holland Hanley.
You voted for Holland Hanley. So you were Team Holland Hanley. I was Team Cap Merch, and Valerie Mondahano won the award. Now, I think all 3 of those players were clearly deserving of this potential honor. Mm-hmm. How do you feel about Valerie getting the win?
I mean, when I think of Most Improved, it is not. I think it's an opportunity to recognize somebody who also was not. I mean, Valerie was the outright winner of the fan and media voting for Second Card All-Stars, which I know we'll get to. But when I imagined this award, I imagined kind of, you have the people at the top, they're going to get recognized. They have wins, they have different accolades. And I think of most improved as the opportunity to recognize somebody who is not at the top of that, but did make significant gains in terms of their relevance and growth in the sport. That being said, I think it's a completely legitimate win for Valerie. It is not how I personally view and will vote for this award. It's not going to change how I vote and view for this award moving forward. If next year Kat Mertsch goes from what she did this season and then wins 3 events, kind of like Valerie did, I probably won't vote for Kat Mertsch. And if there is another candidate who I feel is deserving that is not at the top, I think this award is an opportunity to recognize different sorts of players who are not in that position that Valerie, I think, was with her wins. That being said, I don't think it's an incorrect choice by any means.
I think, Valerie obviously improved significantly. I mean, I remember at one point we were doing a show where I just sat and went through the stats from last year to this year for Valerie. And I mean, it was just night and day. Like, she clearly leveled up across the board. And that's why she was having so much success. The thing is, to me, and I think I talked about this when we were discussing our personal ballots, her trajectory made sense, right? Like, she was already somebody who was looking like they were going to take a step like this last year. And I feel like we were not, we were seeing Valerie Mandujano on lead cards, nearly winning tournaments down the stretch of the 2021 season. And that was not true at all for either Holland Handley or Kat Mertsch. Now, interestingly, the number 2 finisher in the ballot was not either of those players. It was Kristen Tatar. She finished 4th in the media vote, but was 1st in the fan vote. Now, look, Kristen Tatar also improved, but the reason Kristen Tatar did so well this year is because she played more tournaments. It's not because she suddenly became a significantly better player.
No former major winner should ever win the most improved award. That's outrageous. Like, I apologize for any of our listeners who voted for Kristen Tatar. I think that's a ludicrous vote, though. Like, you cannot win a major and then win a most improved award 4 years later. I think that is silly. So I don't agree with that pick at all. But Valerie, I'm fine with.
So Gannon Burr wins most improved on the MPO side. I picked Gannon Burr in my ballot.
I did too.
And he was the consensus number 1 media, number 1 fan vote favorite for this award. But I gather there's been some pushback about him winning. A lot of people saying that Simon Lizotte should have won this award. I really don't understand that, because Simon Lizotte was one of the top 3 highest rated players in the world a couple years ago, has won many Elite Series, and yes, played kind of bad the last couple of years, but you don't get to win most improved if you're somebody who was great, have a bad couple of years, and then play well again. That doesn't compute for me.
This is not a comeback player of the year, right?
And that would be a great award to give out. And I would happily vote for Simon without even thinking twice for that award.
Yes, but does not apply for most improved. I think the only other possible vote here, in my opinion, is or the best other vote. If I didn't go with Gannon, probably would have been Isaac Robinson. But I mean, Gannon's performance from last season to this season is just such a stark increase. Even though we knew about him last year, it was just exceptionally strong play from Gannon this year, and very clearly on a whole nother level, and deserves this award.
I mean, just explode. No matter how you want to slice it, he was the most improved player. I mean, you got to give credit to Simon for the year that he had, but it was a strange year for him. I mean, he among players on the All-Star ballot had the lowest combined average majors finish. Like, just like strange year where like it was kind of feast or famine.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't take away from considering him for, potentially being most improved. It's just, did his game really improve that much? I mean, I just feel like he refined his game, but he's already somebody who's been like clearly just an incredible high level talent. It's not, to me, most improved has to come from somebody who is probably a younger player who's coming up in the sport, not somebody who's already been established. So I was just surprised to see the pushback, although he was number 2 in both fan and media voting.
That kind of blows my mind, but anyway, it feels like Kristen Tatar, like both of them. It just doesn't make a lot of sense to me in the spirit of this award. But
all right, so here's your second and third card All-Stars. We'll start with FPO. Second card All-Stars, Valerie Mondahano, Missy Gannon, Evelina Salonen, and Kat Murch. Third card All-Stars, Hannah Blomroos, Holland Handley, Sarah Hokum, and Ella Hansen. What do you think, Josh?
Sounds right to me. I'm trying to look. I need to look and see how that compared to my ballot. So for FPO, I think it looks like my only difference is I had Maria Oliva, and who did I leave off? Did I leave Kat Murch off? Yeah, I did. I'm crazy. I think I like this one better. I probably should have voted for Kat Murch. But yeah, that was the big difference. I think these are all make sense. Good picks.
Going down the board in terms of Pro Tour points, players left off who finished higher than some players who made the second and third lead card. Natalie Ryan, who obviously is going to be a bit of a controversial player. Mm-hmm. And then Maria Oliva is next. Emily Beach at 14. And I think that describes everybody because Hannah Blomroos was at 15. Noticeably absent, someone I voted for, Haley King. Won a major. Very talented, but punished by voters for not playing enough. And I think that's fair. Fair. I mean, I still think that she deserves a look, but, then again, it's not like she was missing because of injury or something. She was missing because she just simply wasn't going to tournaments. And I don't really have a problem with you being punished for that if that's how you feel as a voter.
Yeah, that's why I left her off. So
right. Second and third card in MPO, Chris Dickerson, Matt Oram, Isaac Robinson, Simon Lizotte on your second card. And then Kyle Klein, Joel Freeman, James Conrad, and Kevin Jones on the third card. I got to say, I'm pretty surprised. I was surprised to see Kevin Jones make this list, not because he isn't a popular player. I knew he would be a popular player with the fan voting, but just because he didn't have a particularly good season. But I voted for James Conrad, and if you compare their seasons, they're extremely similar. Mm-hmm. Neither of them really played amazing, but they also were still top 15 on tour. They were the last two on. It feels about right. The one guy who maybe has a complaint is Corey Ellis, who finished ahead of them in the Pro Tour standings and didn't make either of these second or third lead cards.
I guess the thing I would add, and what's odd about this as an All-Stars event, is that All-Stars in team sports rewards players who may be shackled to bad teams. So Shohei Ohtani is the first man that comes to my mind when I think of that category. But it's in an individual sport. It's the big problem I have with James and Kevin getting in. I did not vote for James or Kevin. Noteworthy. I voted for Aaron Gossage and Drew Gibson in their place. My issue with those two is that it reestablishes, I think, and it's going to be interesting when those two positions are held by someone like Corey Ellis and Drew Gibson, and then below them are Kevin and James. Because the fact that they were 11 and 12 in the Pro Tour standings and also have claim to the popularity that they do means it's really hard to determine on which merit did they get in. Because if they got in on popularity, then honestly, I don't have too much of a problem with it. I personally won't vote for them because I wanted to see Drew Gibson for my reasons. But if they're just winning because of their popularity and their reputation on tour, then that's fine. I think that's how All-Stars events should work. That being said, if they're making it in because people looked at it and went, oh, well, they're 11th and 12th, so that's who's going to be last two on my ballot, then I don't like the idea of this voting system, because then your All-Stars are just going to mirror what your Pro Tour standings are.
Yeah, well, like, what's the point of having a vote?
Right. What's the point of it? Just give it to the top 12 people then and move on with it. Quit doing the pretense of like, oh yeah, we're all going to vote and then we're all just going to vote for the top 12. I think Corey Ellis is the sole exemption to this, where him and Isaac flipped. But I think Isaac had a much flashier season. I mean, we saw him on coverage. He won an event. So the name recognition,
and Corey Ellis choked in big spots. I mean, like, let's be honest. Like, I don't think Corey can be too worked up over it. I mean, he obviously had a great season. He's got a bright future, but he also, didn't win in the spots where he had chances.
Correct.
And Isaac did get a win.
Yep. And I guess the other thing that, like, I mean, Joel Freeman is a player who is kind of controversial, right? A lot of people point out Joel Freeman's kind of complaining on social media as reasons, they don't like him, and some of his antics on the course. I'm interested to see what happens when someone like Joel Freeman is in the 10 through 12 spot, and maybe it's a little bit easier to leave off than in the 7, because he did have a pretty strong season. So I guess I wish this All-Stars event was about All-Stars and not just about season consistency. And it happened to fall that those All-Stars, based on notoriety, also fell in places that I really wanted to see the litmus test for how voters would engage with these positions. But I'm interested to see. I hope this develops into all the way through top 1 to 32, just pulling out the players who are the All-Stars and not just those who are consistent on tour.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a balance. I think you want to reward people in an All-Star type sense when they have a good year. And, I hate seeing the same NBA players get voted to the All-Star teams every year, even if they suck. And like, that does happen sometimes.
It does.
And then really deserving players get snubbed.
It's true.
But on the other hand, I still want to see the fun players play, not just the players who had a good season. So
right.
I think it's a balance to strike. I think voters did a pretty good job overall here. So once again, no eagle.
Again,
so voters punishing for not playing enough.
Did he even get votes? Was he on the list?
I mean, he surely was on the list. I can't go back and look at the ballot, but
no.
It was just listed in Pro Tour point standings. Anyway. Okay, so we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to look ahead to this weekend's New World Championship. And also, I have beef with Brodie Smith? What? We'll talk about it next. The Upshot is presented by Pound Disc Golf, makers of the best bags in the sport. Make sure you check out Pound's Custom Pack Builder, where you can customize every aspect of the bag, from the upper fabric, the lower fabric, the zippers, the sliders, the cords. You can get an Octothorpe, an Octahall, a toolbox, or even a Carlton in custom options. And stay tuned, Rufus Customs coming soon. Go to PoundDiscGolf.com to check out the Custom Pack Builder today.
Sunset Lake CBD is a hemp farm located just outside of Burlington, Vermont. For years, Sunset Lake produced milk for Ben & Jerry's ice cream, and in 2019, they diversified and started growing hemp for CBD. Sunset Lake CBD believes that their farm table approach is the best way for you to get responsibly produced, high-quality CBD products that actually work. Sunset Lake CBD crafts topicals, gummies, oils, and more to help with stress, aches, and sleep. I know I've talked before about how I like using the melatonin CBD-infused gummies before I go to sleep, but one thing I remarked this week that is a really nice feature of it, if I take NyQuil, I have to set a timer because I've got 30 minutes, and then I'm going to be completely dysfunctional. I can take this melatonin CBD and I can continue to watch my movie, read a book, and go to bed when I feel ready rather than forced by other medication. I think it's a big deal for me. I really appreciate the sleep I can get. And I know that melatonin infused CBD has been great. Check them out today and all their other products at sunsetlakecbd.com and use coupon code UPSHOT for 20% off all products. Sunset Lake CBD, farmer owned, Vermont grown.
Welcome back to the Upshot. So I got back from vacation and I see some messages in the Ulti-World Disc Golf Discord about Brodie Smith appearing on Smashbox, and always a great interview. So you can check out the whole thing. But he mentioned me and had this to say. So take a listen.
I think it's pretty good. I think we found someone pretty solid in Charlie Eisenhood. Like, the dude hates me, but like, I think he's pretty good at what he's doing. Obviously, if you get Nate Sexton in the booth, that's always a plus. Terry, you've been killing it as well. And I think Brian has found a pretty good home too as the on-course guy.
So I appreciate Brodie's comments on my commentary, but he comes out of nowhere and says that I hate him. I have no idea where this is coming from. I have talked with Brodie for years. We've had him on this podcast many times. I have defended Brodie in situations where other people were vilifying him. I've also criticized Brodie when I think he deserves it. That does not mean that I hate him. So I don't know where that's coming from. Brodie, you know that you can text me, man. You don't have to. I don't know. Honestly, I don't know where that's coming from. Maybe from like the whole like Paul Macbeth Brodie fallout thing. But like, I don't know, man. Like, some stuff is just like Twitter nonsense, and it's funny sometimes. That doesn't mean I hate you, Brodie.
I think of it was funny because I completely forgot about the Paul Macbeth Brodie beef this year, because I went back and remember we had him on our live show at Worlds in Utah when he rented out the driving range and talked about how much we liked that move and thought it was and defended him against Justin, though I don't think anybody was on Justin McAnally's side. So that didn't go well for him. But yeah, like I think I think our treatment of Brodie's been fair. I'm sorry that you apparently hate Brodie, harboring these secret feelings of anger towards him. I guess.
I don't know. He's welcome to come on anytime. We can chat about it. You know, Brodie is definitely sensitive to criticism. Like, I think that's fair to say. He's quick to block people on Twitter. Gets bent out of shape about stuff. He's sometimes internally inconsistent. You know, he'll talk about how ratings don't matter, and then, you know, he'll send a screenshot of how he did a good job with his rating at some tournament. I get it. He's a big personality in the sport, but broadly, he has brought people into the sport who were not into the sport, and he was part of the kind of COVID boom that, I mean, he came slightly before COVID. So like he started to get into it right before COVID hit in March. And, you know, like, I think he's going to be a little bit abrasive sometimes to people. And he's made a lot of enemies over the years because of that. But on the other hand, you know, he puts his nose to the grindstone. He goes out on tour. He's worked himself up to become certainly a top 50 player in the world, maybe a top 25 player in the world, simply on hard work and trying to get better. And I got a lot of respect for that. You know, but I certainly don't hate Brodie, but, I mean, look, we'll have him on. He can come on anytime. So I'll go on his podcast.
Were you going on debate night, Charlie?
I guess maybe I will. If I get an invite.
I looks like it's not hard to get an invite. They're pretty open about their invitations on Twitter. I think you just have to go on Twitter. So,
all right. So let's take a look at the new World Championship. Again, this is part of the wraparound season 2022-2023. So you can earn points for next year's tour. and it's happening down in Jacksonville, Florida at the New World Sports Complex. It's very confusing that this tournament is called the New World Championship. We really shouldn't have world and championship next to each other except at, the one. But, whatever. This is the site of the 2017 and 2018 Disc Golf Pro Tour Championship. Not to be confused with the New World Championship, not to be confused with the World Championship. Josh, sorry, you're going to say something.
Yeah, I was just going to ask if that's why Ricky's not playing, because he saw World Championship and was just like, this is not for me.
Oh, man. So this will be played on it's the red course. So you can check out the caddy book online. Comes in at 10,269 for MPO, 9,389 feet for FPO. It should be a good challenge. And they've certainly put a lot of work into this complex. It's a private facility. And they've got like a sports bar with food and there's like a whole clubhouse area. I don't know what kinds of changes have happened since 2018 when the Tour Championship was happening down there. But I know that there's they've wanted to be back on tour, and so they get this shot here. It's easy for me to imagine this being an Elite Series stop in the future if Florida fits at some point on the tour. And I think that, maybe you think about a changing schedule. We've talked about Florida in the past, but certainly Jacksonville, in February as a place to start the tour would make a lot of sense.
Yep, I think so too. Over in MPO, notable players. MPO's got a pretty decent field. I think this is going to be a good competition on the MPO side. We've got Paul Macbeth, Anthony Barella, Isaac Robinson, Ezra Aderhold, Garrett Gurthey, Brodie Smith, Connor O'Reilly, Andrew Fish, and Luke Sampson, who are going to be on the MPO side. FPO, a little bit lighter. Sarah Hokum, Jessica Weiss, Emily Beach, Maria Oliva, Holly Finley, and Deanne Carey, and Chloe Alice round out above the 920 threshold for your ratings there. So MPO should be quite the enjoyable tournament, I think. I think there's going to be there's a chance we get to see Isaac Robinson playing again in this kind of environment. It looks like there's going to be some good wooded holes. Brodie Smith could be playing right next side Paul Macbeth, which is always a great time. I'm excited. I think it should be a good MPO spectacle.
I agree. I mean, look, if Macbeth is on the board, people are going to tune in.
Yep.
And so, we got a lot of players who overwinter in Florida now. So, I think it makes sense that this is going to be fairly well attended. Certainly across the board, a bit better than the previous tournament. And so, particularly in FPO where, there's at least a little bit of depth to the competitive field. So should be fun. They're going to actually have live coverage of all 3 days of the tournament on DGN. So if you're trying to get your fix, this is your last chance to get your disc golf live fix before really the end of the holidays. And we got to get into February before we can start watching disc golf again. So like I said earlier, Josh and I are going to do live Rapid React show on Sunday. So we'll be tuning in. Josh, we got to make our picks here, my friends.
Yes, we do. I am not. I over an MPO, I'm taking Isaac Robinson this weekend. Yeah. I'm picking against Macbeth this weekend. There are a lot of holes that are tightly wooded from the looks of it. Some double mandos, I love Isaac Robinson's putting and precision. I think that's going to benefit him well. Lots of artificial OB as well. Well, cart path OB, right? So, restricted, but not necessarily with white flags. So, I'm going to take Isaac Robinson over an MPO.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and take Macbeth.
Okay.
He's the highest rated player by like 14 points or something.
Yeah. You don't have to defend that.
I definitely think there's players in this field who can beat him 100%. But I don't think it's ever really a bad plan to pick Paul Macbeth.
If money was on this tournament, I probably would also pick Paul Macbeth. Who do you got in FPO?
FPO? I want to take Jessica Weiss.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I really liked what I saw from Jessica Weiss down the stretch of the season.
Mm-hmm.
She was playing very well, including on the wooded track up in the Pittsburgh area. So I think, I just think maybe she's like a little bit better player right now than Sarah Hokum, to be honest.
I think that's probably fair. I am going to take Maria Oliva. Had a couple podium finishes at Silver Series, had some good Elite Series finishes, a couple second places at some A tiers this season, but has not gotten a win this season. So I'm going to go with Maria Oliva to get a win to start the 2023 season.
Well, this season is dead and gone.
It is. She's still playing A tiers though. So
Calendar year.
Yeah, this calendar year, but for the 2023 season, I think she starts it off right. Just a great player.
All right. Well, you can check it out. It's taking place in Jacksonville, and coverage will be on DGN. And I assume they'll have post-produced on the DGPT YouTube channel, although I haven't seen that officially announced anywhere. So that's what they've been doing for silver events, of course. So that's going to do it for this week's only edition of the Upshot. Join us in our subscriber bonus segments, and then we will catch you on Sunday for our Rapid React show, and then we'll be back with you on a regular schedule next week. We're going to start having interview guests again, and looking forward to getting into the meat of the off season. For Josh Mansfield, I'm Charlie Eisenhood saying so long, and we'll talk to you next time right here on The Upshot.